Chapter 13:11. Wisteria Rena looked at the damaged holy sword in a daze. The cracks on the beautiful blade were as dazzling as the sun. She, who had always been cheerful, lowered her head in silence, and the atmosphere fell into a strange silence. Other than Dustless himself, whether it was Riaz, Genova, or Irina who was deeply affected, they were all immersed in shock and disbelief. What kind of monster was this guy? A prehistoric beast? Or a main god of some unknown mythological system? Or was it like Dustless's monologue, "I am your god"? The three of them looked at Dustless, or rather at his head, trying to find a gap to prove that the holy sword was not a useless stick. But to their dismay, Dustless's eyes were smiling, and his face was as calm as a breeze. Even an idiot could not tell that he was fine. "What else do you two have to say?" Dustless still held onto Genova's holy sword as he asked with a calm expression. "Are you really God?" "Oh no, you are really our lord." Wisteria Irina asked excitedly after hesitating for a long time. Her eyes were filled with golden starlight. The golden luster that Dustless showed before was very warm and peaceful, and also had extremely terrifying destructive power. While giving the enemy lethal pressure, it could also give all things the light of hope, which was in line with the nature of the Lord's ability. The only thing missing was the angelic halo like Archangel Michael. Of course, Dustless could also use the nature of Yin Yang escape to create a perfect one. "Idiot, don't be fooled by him. This guy has admitted that he is not the Lord." Genova's mouth twitched as she looked at Rena, who was about to pounce on Dustless and cry. She almost fainted in frustration. "Tell her you are not the Lord." Genova glared at Dustless with fire in her eyes. The two of them were here for the Holy Sword mission. They were not here to find a random lord to jump ship. "Why not?" Dustless asked back nonchalantly. "Your god is dead anyway. Only by believing in a stronger main soul like me can you be forgiven. So, believe in me, Genova." At the same time, Dustless's back glowed with a bright holy light. He had decisively activated the glint fruit's ability to cleanse his body. After a few hundred years of familiarity, Dustless had developed the glint fruit to an unimaginably heaven-defying degree. Furthermore, he had awakened the glint fruit's ability early on and was able to pass off the fake as the real thing. "This guy is a fraud." Riaz did not know whether to laugh or cry. She subconsciously looked at Genova and Wisteria Rena. The two of them had blank faces as they worshipped Dustless sincerely. Dustless's body glowed with a golden light. His expression was gentle, and his eyes were as calm as the autumn water. Genova and Rena, who were bathed in the golden light, were about to melt. Their hearts were cleansed like never before. They clasped their hands together and had a fanatical smile on their faces. They looked like devout believers from medieval Europe. It was not just Wisteria Rena and Genova. Even Riaz, who had nothing to do with this, was stunned. She could not help but want to worship Dustless. That unique temperament was filled with an indescribable magic. "The creatures of this world are indeed weak. They have been bewitched by me. Even if the gods are everywhere, they are still far from being comparable to me. When they meet a superdimensional character like me, they have probably lost themselves." Dustless looked gentle and compassionate on the surface, but in his heart, he was staring at Wisteria Rena and Genova. Due to his height, he could see their snowy peaks clearly. Dustless let out a wretched laugh in his heart. His eyes shone with a wolfish light. The method he used was very simple. He only used the glint fruit's ability and the Haushikuhaki's special effect. Therefore, his temperament was very contradictory. While he healed the world, he also contained a domineering aura that could destroy all living things and a will that was above the 9 heavens. And he also shamelessly used a small illusion to confuse the two of them. Clang! An ear-piercing roar broke the silence, and everyone woke up from their dreamlike world. "Ha!" Genova and Wisteria Rena woke up from their dreams and opened their eyes to look at Dustless. They suddenly realized that they were half a body shorter. "Let go if you're done hugging me. After all, Riaz is still here. I have to pay attention to my imagination." Dustless smiled gently. It sounded like a fantasy story. The two were stunned. They looked at each other in disbelief. They felt that their knees were cold and instinctively looked at the ground. "Bastard, sorcery, it must be sorcery. You evil heretic." Genova was furious. Her face was flushed red, and the sound of teeth clenching came from her mouth. She found herself and Rena kneeling on the ground. Both of their hands were hugging Dustless's thigh, afraid that this master would run away. "I'll let you go this time. I'll deal with you, evil heretic, after I take back the holy sword. Those who dare to impersonate our master will be judged by justice." After glaring fiercely at Dustless, Genova hurriedly grabbed Wisteria Irina's arm and fled the scene. She looked extremely flustered and terrified, and her entire body felt uneasy. Genova's mind was filled with Dustless's back, and the illusion that she would rather die than leave him. She knew that this was an imposter savior, and yet she still had the thought of changing her mind. Is it really okay for you to trick other girls like this? It might affect the relationship between the demons and the church. Rias smiled bitterly. In fact, it was not just Genova and Rena. Even she was affected by his unique temperament and had the absurd idea of turning back. You don't think it's appropriate? What's wrong with it? Dustless sat lazily on the sofa with his hands behind his head. He said seriously, "Believe it or not, their master has indeed stepped into the underworld and is dead. What's wrong with using me as a spiritual anchor? This is salvation." Chapter 13:12. In fact, it was not just the gods. Even the demon lords had all fallen, but this shocking news was too difficult for Rias, Genova, and Rena to digest. It was almost impossible. Right? His eyes flashed as Dustless suddenly remembered the culprit who stole the holy sword. He turned into a golden rainbow and disappeared from the supernatural research department. Damn it, that bastard who pretended to be the Lord. Genova cursed Dustless in her heart. So what if he pretended to be the Lord, but why did he have to pretend so perfectly? Oh. Dustless's disappointed sigh came from the front. Rena and Genova were both stunned. Dustless was already sitting on the bench with a disappointed look. He said, "I finally got the information about the missing holy sword, but you two are still cursing me behind my back. Looks like I don't need it. I still have things to do. Goodbye." With that, Dustless's body glowed with endless light and gradually lost its texture. It looked like he was about to turn into light and disappear. Hey, wait. Genova reluctantly opened her mouth to stop them. Although she was very happy for Dustless to disappear, she had to admit that it was impossible for them to find news of the holy sword in such a large town without at least 10 days to half a month, or even longer. Where did the information about the holy sword come from? I will thank you in the future. Genova bowed in front of Dustless. Genova still could not muster up the courage to look at Dustless. It left a shadow in her heart that she could not get rid of. Even if she had to face the elites of the fallen angels, she did not want to face Dustless. Sit down. Patting the empty seat beside him, Dustless smiled and said, "The mastermind behind all of this is actually a cadre of the fallen angels, Corcobor, and a few of his underlings. I heard that a priest of the church was killed, and the one who did it was Corcobor's underling, the lost priest, Fried Saren. Ever since the last Great War, Corcobor has been bored with the current world, so he wants to start a war. After failing to snatch the sacred sword from your Archangel Michael, he seems to be up to something new this time. He plans to start a war with Cult King Academy as the center, pulling in all three factions and starting a fierce war." You understand it very well. Rena and Genova looked at each other and felt that Dustless did not seem to be lying. The two women sat on either side of Dustless. Speaking of which, are you really a human? Wisteria Rena looked at Dustless expectantly. It would have been better if she had not asked. Now that she had spoken, she immediately digressed. If you are willing to join the church, Lord Michael will definitely put you in an important position. Sorry, I'm not interested. Hearing this, Dustless shook his head decisively. Joining one of the factions meant that he might be used to participate in the war. He did not care much about things like the world, but after obtaining it, sometimes he would feel even more bored. That's a pity. Genova's eyes dimmed. In fact, she also felt that Dustless joining the church was a stock with unlimited potential. She believed that he would definitely shine in the future. I appreciate your kindness. Dustless smiled and nodded. His eyes moved slyly as he looked at the full breasts. Dustless thought that his charm was not bad, but it was impossible to make someone abandon their faith and fall for him on their first meeting. He could only ask for the next best thing. Why don't you two give it to a friend? There was still a long time, so he could slowly conquer it in the future. It would not be too late to talk about other things after getting on this line. My name is Genova, please take care of me in the future. My name is Wisteria Rena, please take care of me in the future. Wisteria Rena and Genova introduced each other in a friendly manner. Their tone sounded as if they had let go of their previous grudges. In the end, the two of them still owed Dustless. After treating them to a meal and telling them the whereabouts of the sacred sword, Genova and Wisteria Rena's impression of Dustless had also changed. After chatting for a few more minutes, Dustless told them all the details of Fried's hiding place. Only then did Genova and Wisteria Rena thank him and leave. Phew. That's it? That's too insincere. Dustless complained as he turned his head to look at the backs of the two girls leaving Chariot King Academy. Yeah, it's really too simple. They should at least say a kiss before leaving, right, Dustless? Hearing this, Dustless nodded his head like a chick pecking at rice, expressing his agreement. That makes sense. After all, this is the whereabouts of the sacred sword. They really did want to kiss me. Junai, eavesdropping is not your style. The gentle voice that had suddenly spoken was none other than the smiling Junai. Era. I didn't hear you speak, but I could feel your resentment from afar. Looking at your resentful face, I could guess what you were thinking. Does this count as telepathy, Dustless? Junai was indeed a charming fairy. Every word and action of hers revealed a fatal charm. Looking at Junai, who was leisurely walking over, even though Dustless's mind was as steady as a rock, he could not help but feel a surge of emotions. Right, where's Isha and Kitten? Noticing that the two of them were missing, Dustless frowned and asked. As for Issei Hudu, he was ignored. Who asked him to be a man? The people of the church were about to start a war with the fallen angels. At this critical moment, mistakes were inevitable. Dustless had promised Isha that he would take care of her for the rest of her life. It's very rude to talk about other women in front of me. As she spoke, Junai deliberately moved her slender waist closer to Dustless. Her seductive eyes were like silk. His eyes darted around, afraid that Archangel Michael would suddenly jump out and strangle Dustless. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed in the Supernatural Research Department. At this moment, everyone from the Supernatural Research Department was present, except for one person, Huda Issei. I didn't see Yijo-san yesterday and he didn't come to school today. It seems like he didn't ask for leave from the teacher, and I went to his house to look for him, but there was no one there. Frowning, Shiba Yudo said worriedly. Thinking of Huda Issei, everyone felt a headache. This guy's brain was empty, and it seemed like he only had things like Appa. His training and strength were even worse. TSK, it seems like it's because of me that Huda Issei ended up in this state. Otherwise, he would be the one surrounded by the girls right now. Dustless thought to himself and couldn't help but sympathize with Xen. Huda Issei was still a general without an army, and all the girls that he was interested in were all in Dustless's arms. That was why Huda Issei was still single. Mr. Issei should be fine, right? The kind-hearted Aisha said worriedly. Even though she had turned into a demon, she still maintained a kind heart. No, Senpai is the host of the Red Dragon Emperor's Gauntlet. He won't be that useless. Although his strength is still very weak, I think he should be able to protect himself. Kitten was still somewhat confident in Huda Issei. Of course he will be fine. Dustless also nodded in agreement and then ridiculed in his heart. If he sees Appa, Brother Issei will unleash a strength that will make even the gods retreat. The reputation of the Breast Dragon Emperor was not for nothing. Dong dong dong. At this moment there was a sudden burst of messy knocking on the door. Before Riaz could open her mouth to let someone in, the person directly broke the door open and barged in. Sorry for the sudden interruption. The person who came in was Tsang Na's servant, Shinra Chuanji. At this moment, her hair was covered in sweat, and she was panting heavily. It seemed like she had run all the way here. The situation is urgent, so I'll make it short. Riaz's servant, Huda Issei, has been captured. Shinra Chuanji's words were shocking, and at the same time she took out a photo. On the photo was the pitiful Huda Issei who was beaten up, and the culprit, the lost priest, freed Saren. This kid is really unlucky to be caught by that perverted priest. I'm afraid he's dead by now. Dustless touched his chin and gloated. No, not yet. Shinra Chuanji organized her tone and said seriously, just now we met the senior officer of the fallen angel, Korkabor, and he personally came to issue a challenge. This time Shinra Chuanji took out another photo. The two girls who were besieged were Genova and Wisteria Rena. Chapter 13-14. The two girls wielding sacred swords were in a sorry state, sweating profusely as they stood back to back, staring at the approaching enemy. Was this sent by Kokbor? Dustless glanced at Shinra Chuanji and asked. The picture was quite good, probably taken at close range. Kokbor probably ordered his men to take it to threaten Riaz. The atmosphere was tense and no one said a word. In the middle of the picture was a close-up of Kokbor himself, flapping his dense black wings, his expression full of arrogance. As a cadre of the fallen angels, Kokbor did have the right to look down on others. This idiot called Kokbor looks like an idiot. Is he tired of living or does he think that he is invincible and can look down on everything? Dustless spoke first to break the silence. I've decided to save them. Rias followed suit. The decision was sudden, but her tone was firm. This time it was not just about saving Genova and Wisteria Rena, as well as her kin Hadaise. Everyone get ready. They definitely did not expect to rescue the hostages after sending the picture. Rias spoke quickly. Her sudden change of heart seemed to be without a plan, but in reality she had ulterior motives. Don't you need to prepare? The enemy is a high-ranking cadre of the fallen angels, someone who once fought against the gods. Shinra Chuanji's expression changed, and her words were full of dissuasion. This picture was sent by Kokbor himself. Must be a trap. Don't fall for it. They must have planned this beforehand and are waiting for us to walk right into their trap. Of course I know it's a trap. Before Rias could speak, Dustless spoke first. If we're afraid of the enemy just because it's a trap, then we're no different from assaulted fish. Dustless's words made everyone unable to restrain their laughter. The originally tense atmosphere eased up quite a bit. You're crazy. Kokbor is a cadre of the fallen angels, not a normal pawn. Shinra Chuanji did not give up and tried her best to dissuade Rias. She said softly, the president hopes that everyone can wait for about 2 hours and then we can. I appreciate Song's kindness, but I don't need it. This is a mission from the Supernatural Research Lab. She actually wanted to use this opportunity to test the strength of herself and the favored. After all, there would not be any major problems. After all, with the existence of the Bug Dustless, all problems would be solved. Under the dark night sky, the whole world was bitterly cold. In a remote outskirts there were very few people here. All that could be seen were plains. There was only an inconspicuous and dilapidated church. The walls were covered with thick moss, and it had been abandoned for a long time. Swish, swish. After a series of sharp whistling sounds, Dustless and the others appeared. Alili. He actually chose such a barren place as our burial ground. That fellow Korkabor is truly heartless. Rias and the others had wanted to sneak in and figure out the situation, but Dustless' dissatisfaction spread throughout the night, and they were all exposed to the enemy. I didn't do it on purpose. I just felt it. Dustless coughed awkwardly when he saw everyone looking at him with disdain. Thud, thud, thud. At the same time, leisurely footsteps came from inside the church, along with an arrogant tone. Eek. Shitty Demon's teammates have finally come to save the Shitty Demon. Good, this time let me chop you all into pieces and feed you to the dogs. Hearing this crazy tone, Dustless did not even need to look to know who it was. All the trash demons are mobilized this time. 1, 2, 3. 5 or 6 came at once. This is enough for me to show off my skills. Fried carried his oddly shaped golden greatsword and shouted. He did not care about Rias and the others at all, and had already sentenced them to death. There are so many arrogant bugs like him. Doesn't he know that he's the reason why I hate him for smelling the air around him? Dustless waved his hand in annoyance. He realized that the air he breathed into his nostrils had a foul stench. You damned handsome gigolo, what did you say? Hearing that, Fried's gaze fell on Dustless. He was not an idiot. Naturally, he knew what Dustless meant. How dare he say that my mouth stinks? How dare he? Under everyone's gaze, Fried carried his gleaming holy sword and turned around, walking towards Dustless. His face was cold as ice. Shitty Demon, there seems to be a difference between you and them. Pointing at Rias and the others, Fried frowned slightly. His sloppy expression was somewhat restrained. He felt that there was a world of difference between Dustless and Rias and the others. How shocking. You can still see the difference between Rias and me. Tiske, I didn't think that there would be a piece of trash like you in this backwater latrine. Dustless said with a smile, giving a thumbs up with a flattering expression. Rias, Junai, Tachin Kitten, Aisha and the others could not help but laugh. Dustless's analogy was even worse than pointing at Fried's nose and scolding him. You're asking for it. I'll cut you into pieces right now. Seeing this, Fried flew into a rage. Holding the sacred sword he had stolen, he charged at Dustless. This young gigolo's strength was only half-baked, but his mouth was sharp and crafty. Chapter 13-15. Fried's crazy face was distorted. His eyes were filled with tyrannical light. The way he looked at Dustless was as if he had met the enemy who killed his father after so many years. Stupid thing. Seeing this, Dustless's pupils shrank, and a cold mist appeared around his body. Go to hell, you hateful gigolo. When he was only a few meters away from Dustless, Fried stomped hard on the ground with both feet. His body was like a spring as he jumped dozens of meters high. Trying to kill me with the force of falling? There is a disdainful sneer on the corner of his mouth. If he was killed in a daze, the Kage who was killed by him in the past as well as the Marine Admiral including the Captain of Death, will harass him in his dreams. What a bright light! Fried exclaimed. A small light suddenly condensed on his thumb, and it was the size of a thumb. You want to use this fluorescent light to resist me? Is today April Fool's Day? Fried held the holy sword with both hands and gathered 90% of his strength, intending to cut Dustless in half. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. It was also at this critical moment that a black shadow suddenly appeared and disrupted Fried's plans. Clang. Sparks flew in the void and Fried's invincible attack was stopped. Kiba blocked the fatal attack for Dustless. You really like to meddle in other people's business. Dustless glanced at the blond young man in front of him, and his tone was not frivolous, nor did he show any gratitude. That's right, damn handsome blonde, you really like to meddle in other people's business. Fried gritted his teeth. Because of Kiba interference, Dustless's annoying face was still alive in the world, disgusting him. Leave Fried to me. He and I are old rivals. You guys go and save xianxia. Kiba held his sword with both hands, completely different from his usual gentleness, revealing a cold murderous intent. Be careful, Yudo. Seeing how insistent he was, Riaz did not refuse Kiba kindness and sneaked around Fried into the ruined church. Are you trying to ignore my existence? Fried glared angrily at Riaz, who was leaving in a hurry. Just as he was about to charge at her, an agile figure blocked his path. Clang. Yudo brandished the long sword in his hand. His swordsmanship was quite exquisite, and he forced Fried to retreat from tricky angles. You guys have fun, I'll be leaving first. Dustless waved his hand at Kiba as he hummed a tune and walked into the depths of the church like he was taking an afternoon stroll. Bastard, who allowed you to leave? Stop right there. Seeing Dustless's frivolous expression, Fried was furious. Seeing that Dustless had exposed his back to him, he knew that this was a rare opportunity to launch a sneak attack. However, what happened next made Fried vomit blood. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The cold glint of a sword swept toward Fried. His heart was bleeding. Helpless, he could only retreat. Chapter 13-17. The commotion on Dustless's side attracted everyone's attention. They were all stunned and looked at him in disbelief. Dustless easily sent Fried flying without making a move. It was as if Fried was the one who was sent flying. Fried. Seeing such a scene, Balpa Galileo roared in anger out of humiliation. Bo boss. Seemingly used to being an underling for a long time, even though Fried was still unconscious, when he heard Balpa Galileo's voice, he instinctively called the boss. How have I treated you? Suppressing the anger in his heart, Balpa asked with a gloomy face. Do you even need to ask? Of course you're rotten to the core. You think you're good to me? Fried complained in his heart, but on the surface, he had a flattering expression. He raised his thumb and said against his conscience, Boss, I'm indebted to you even more than my own parents. Hearing this, Balpa became even angrier. He took out a pistol and pointed it at Fried. Since you know that I'm good to you, why did you throw yourself out? That kid didn't even make a move, and there was no magic fluctuation. Your acting is too fake. But this prop is pretty good. There's so much blood on your head. This prop is exactly the same as human blood. Caw caw caw. Hearing this, countless crows flew over Fried's head. He was speechless and decisively labeled Balpa Galileo as an idiot. Throw the match? I'll let your sister loose. Even I don't know how I got sent flying. Fried's face was dark. His boss was only good at research, but he was an idiot in all other aspects. TSK. The enemy is right in front of you, and you two still dare to put on such a weird performance. You two are quite capable, you two are very talented in acting, but I'm not interested in this kind of vulgar drama, so I'm sorry, but please die. Behind Balpa, high-density photons floated and flashed, and Dustless appeared. He looked down coldly at Balpa Galileo, who had his back facing him. Light danced in his right hand, and a golden greatsword instantly condensed into form. Feeling the aura of death that he had never felt before, Balpa was so scared that his soul trembled. He turned his head to look, only to see a deathly still expression on his face as he raised the heaven-gathering cloud sword that was made from the glint fruit. Don't kill me. The person protecting me is a high-ranking officer of the fallen angels, Corcobor. Balpa Galileo retreated in fear, hoping that Dustless would be afraid of the reputation of the fallen angel cadre. After all, Corcobor was someone who had fought with God and the Demon King. Swish, swish. It would have been better if Balpa Galileo had not said such nonsense. After he finished speaking, the heavenly sword of clouds fell even faster and instantly cut Balpa into pieces. Pucci. He was cut in half by Dustless like tofu. His eyes were wide open when he died, and his face was full of unwillingness. That idiot? I've been looking for him for a long time. Dustless glanced coldly at Balpa Galileo's corpse, then stepped over it and slowly walked towards Freed, who was still on the verge of ascending to heaven. Don't come over. Freed shouted in fear, scared out of his wits by Dustless's strength. However, Dustless did him a rare favor and stopped in his tracks at the first moment. Phew! Seeing this, Freed heaved a sigh of relief. Remembering Dustless's unprecedented strength, he quickly knelt on the ground and kowtowed sincerely. You will be my boss from now on. Boss, my name is... No need to introduce yourself, I know your name is Freed. Dustless directly interrupted. Freed looked at him in boredom and asked, Freed, do you know why I stopped? Freed was stunned at first, then said without hesitation, You must have taken a fancy to my talent and wanted to take me in as your underling to deal with Corkabor. You be my underling? Hearing this, Dustless could not help but laugh. He did have an underling, but his strength was hundreds of times higher than Freed's. This guy was not even qualified to carry his shoes. You don't deserve to be my underling. The reason I stopped is actually... Dustless looked at Freed with a cold gaze. His eyes had already changed and he said in a low voice, Actually, I want to ask if you have any last words. Based on your current answer, it seems like you don't have any last words. In that case, die in peace. Amaterasu. Freed was shocked. Just as he was about to flatter, his body lit up with black flames. At first it was just a weak flame, but in the next second, it turned into a blazing black will-o'-the-wisp and swallowed him whole. Kill me. Freed, who was being burned by Amaterasu, was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. His tone was filled with regret and it was chilling. Idiot, enjoy it slowly. After glancing at Freed, Dustless walked toward Riaz and the others with light steps. The two of them were not from the same dimension, and the difference between them was too great. Dustless was not interested at all. It was just a one-sided slaughter. However, compared to Dustless, Riaz and the others were having a much harder time. This was a trap that Corkabor had set up in advance, and they were invading without any preparation. Not everyone had the same strength as Dustless, who could crush the world 100 times over. Riaz and the others were in a tough battle. Croc croc croc. The defensive magic circle that Riaz had painstakingly set up was attacked by multiple forces. She could not hold it alone, and in the end the magic circle could not withstand the pressure and was shattered. A dense cloud of magic bullets flew toward Riaz and the others. Xiao Mao and the others were exhausted, and they could only watch as the magic bullets tried to destroy them all. Chapter 13-18. Riaz, Junai, Kitten, Aisha, and the others all had despair written all over their faces. Looking at the large number of fallen angels swarming toward them, they felt their scalps tingle and despair. Their fighting spirit also fell to the bottom, and they could not find their confidence again. They finally understood the saying that many ants could kill an elephant. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A sky full of flashing magic attacks came whistling, and just as they were about to devour Riaz and the others, a blue barrier formed under their feet. Binding Path 73 Mountain Toppling Crystal. A triangular defensive barrier appeared instantly, turning into a sturdy barrier that blocked all kinds of attacks. Boom, boom, boom. A large number of magic light bullets all landed on the barrier, and a series of explosions sounded. The entire church shook as if it would collapse at any moment. The ground was also torn apart by the fierce battle. Boom, boom, boom. No matter how much the outside world exploded or how big the tremors were, Riaz and the rest were not affected by the aftershocks. No matter what kind of attack happened, they were not affected. It was as if Riaz and the rest were living in another peaceful world, free from the flames of war and the threat of death. How is this possible? Seeing how the barrier was so strong and indestructible, Riaz and the rest were dumbfounded. Snowball was so shocked that it was undulating. It was not that they were ignorant, but the dreamlike scene in front of them had shattered their worldview. Don't look so incredulous as if you are living in a fairy tale world. I can tell you clearly that what you are seeing is not a dream. A voice filled with certainty sounded in the girl's ears, and it instantly attracted Riaz and the rest's attention. They were familiar with this cynical tone. Dustless. The members of the Supernatural Research Lab exclaimed. Whoosh, whoosh. Seeing Dustless appear, these fallen angels also found a new target to attack. He was like a black hole that attracted all the attacks. Boom, boom, boom. After a short few seconds, Dustless was hit by a rain of magic bullets. The violent explosions surrounded him for a long time, and his body kept breaking into pieces. But no matter what kind of attack he took, Dustless would recover again. Is he immortal? Riaz mumbled in disbelief. The cleavage that she was so proud of swayed back and forth, and the huge meatballs swayed up and down. That soul-stirring arc made Dustless ignore the fallen angel's attack as he stared straight at Riaz. You bunch of bugs. Frowning slightly, Dustless looked around at the fallen angel who was occupying the void. His eyes turned cold and he rolled his eyes. It was as if a natural disaster had suddenly descended upon the world. Super Shinra. Boundless chakra erupted from his body, and the surging repulsive force destroyed everything in its path. Boom boom boom. The fallen angels floating in the air turned into dust in the air and disappeared without a trace. At the same time they felt a lot cooler. Riaz and the others were stunned to find that after the catastrophic attack, their surroundings were no different from the apocalypse. Not even a blade of grass grew. The abandoned church was nowhere to be seen, and the fallen angel's corpse was nowhere to be found. Only the ground beneath Riaz's feet remained intact. The rest of the area had been renovated, and the soil hundreds of meters underground was exposed to the moonlight. So powerful. Hyodo Issei, who had regained his senses, swallowed hard. The Red Dragon Emperor's gauntlet on his arm also flashed with an emerald light. He was also surprised by the powerful attack. Super Shinra Tensei's power and distance limit are minimal, or this town would have disappeared as well. Dustless did not bother to explain, and at the same time, under everyone's shocked gaze, his body started to change strangely. Bam! Dustless's body started to emit white smoke, and he turned into a block of wood. What's going on, Riaz? As if their brains were not enough to process the change, Riaz and the others asked like statues, their faces blank. Damn it, now I understand what he meant by those words. Looking at the mess left behind by the Super Shinra Tensei, Riaz smiled bitterly. She was also stunned by Dustless's unfathomable and unfathomable strength. He once said that if one's strength could transcend the boundaries of race, then he would be the demon king and god, including the so-called dragon race. Now it seems that he was right. Riaz's tone was raised by several octaves, and it sounded very sharp. If she did not see it with her own eyes, she would have thought that this was the aftermath of a fierce battle between the gods. Is it that exaggerated? Hyodo Issei asked doubtfully in a low voice. His voice was so soft that no one could hear it. Of course, there was one special existence who was an exception, and he clearly heard Hyodo Issei's complaint. That guy is not simple, at least he is not a creature of the same dimension as you. The Red Dragon Emperor's voice echoed in Hyodo Issei's mind. His voice was full of vicissitudes, and he could not figure out how Dustless could do this. There was no magic wave. That explosive power that could destroy the world made even the Red Dragon Emperor's heart skip a beat. If he was not careful, he would be pulled into the underworld to accompany the evil spirits. Actually, you have to work hard. Even if you are not as good as that guy, you can still reach the point where you can look down on the world. The Red Dragon Emperor saw Hyodo Issei's reluctance and tried to tempt him. The Red Dragon Emperor's strength was undeniable, but it was a pity that Hyodo Issei's host was a weirdo. Only when he met something like Dustless would he be able to unleash his shocking strength. However, the sad thing was that his harem had all joined Dustless, and he had become a general without an army. Not only did he not have any Dustless, but he also had to envy Dustless's romantic encounters and live under Dustless's shadow. Chapter 1319. Really? Lord Red Dragon Emperor? Hyodo Issei was so excited that his eyes almost turned into hearts. In fact, he was also a young man with 8th grade syndrome. He often dreamt of himself stepping on thousands of worlds and countless beauties rushing to throw themselves into his arms. You've changed your attitude a little too quickly, partner. Red Dragon Emperor was speechless. He even suspected that if he could give Hyodo Issei great power, this guy would immediately kneel and call him Lord Red Dragon Emperor. Of course, you can even surpass that guy. Red Dragon Emperor said confidently. As one of the 2 sky dragons, his power was not to be underestimated. Korkabor hasn't shown himself yet. Could it be that he's going back to Chariot King Academy first? Riaz suddenly gave a serious order. She seemed to have thought of something as her expression turned gloomy. Visible beads of sweat even dripped from her hair. The situation was urgent. Inside Chariot King Academy, a strange-looking building floated in the sky, controlled by someone's will. A man with a ferocious expression sat on top of it. He looked down at Chariot King Academy with disdain. A bunch of idiots? That's just my little trick to lure the enemy away. My real goal is to destroy this academy and this eyesore town, Korkabor said disdainfully. Kokeber said condescendingly. He lifted his gaze slightly, his face calm and confident. He did not seem to care about the crowd that was rushing over from afar. He looked over and saw that the team belonged to the student council. The leader was the president of the student council, Xianxia. This despicable fallen angel's real goal is Chariot King Academy. Xianxia saw Korkabor's sinister smile. Her face turned pale as she looked at his dense wings. Fear could not help but flash in her eyes. The fallen angel officers were far stronger than her. I've investigated your information. You're called Xianxia, the younger sister of the demon king, Leviathan, Seraphil. If I kill you according to Seraphil's personality, she'll definitely start a war with the fallen angels immediately. At that time the angels will definitely be involved and the three forces will start a war again, haha. Korkabor laughed maniacally. He was so excited that he almost danced. Die, sister of the demon king, Leviathan. Xianxia. Kokeber said crazily. Light flickered in his hand, and a huge spear of light materialized in the blink of an eye. Kokeber, who was holding the spear of light, became even more arrogant. The hearts of Xianxia and the others were filled with despair. She even began to hallucinate that the Grim Reaper was waving at her with a smile. Disappear. The light spear only had half of its power, so as to prevent any sudden changes, Korkabor threw it out. It was fine as long as it could kill Tsang and the others. Destroying this town could wait. So, the golden light descended at a speed that defied the laws of physics. In the blink of an eye, it was already close to Xianxia and the others. She also closed her eyes in despair. Boom boom boom. An earth-shattering explosion erupted, causing the entire Cult King Academy to tremble. The ground was mercilessly torn apart, and the school building was flattened by the shockwaves of the explosion. A bottomless crater appeared in the center of the building. I'm not dead? To Xianxia's surprise, she was not dead yet. A divine golden light enveloped her. Big sister? Xianxia was pleasantly surprised. The first person who could resist the attack of a fallen angel cadre was her sister, Seraph. Sorry, your sister is busy and can't come. Your brother-in-law is here. A teasing tone was heard, and Dustless's figure appeared. It's you? I don't have a brother-in-law. Watch your words. Xianxia's face darkened and she said in an unfriendly tone. Her good impression of Dustless for saving her disappeared instantly. Tsk. You're denying me like this. Are you saying? Dustless leaned close to Xianxia's ear and blew hot air, causing her face to turn red. Her delicate cheeks were especially charming. You want to level up and sit at the same position as your sister? You want to spend the rest of your life with your sister? It's actually very simple. Under what circumstances could she level up and sit at the same position, and be together forever? Marry Dustless together. You bastard. Xianxia was so angry that she stomped her feet. Her body was shaking and her followers were glaring at him. Who are you? Hurry up and give it to me if you don't want to die. You dare to ruin my plan. Even if you're smart enough to leave now, I'll still tear you into pieces and burn your bones to ashes to vent my anger. Korkabor said with a murderous aura. He stared at Dustless with his red eyes and suddenly found him familiar. He asked, I think I've seen you before. I remember. Oh right, you're the husband of Demon King Sizak's sister. A thought flashed through his mind, and Korkabor revealed Dustless's identity. He then laughed ruthlessly. If I kill you and Seraph's sister, the Leviathan, the devils will definitely fly into a rage. By then, the three great forces will definitely be plunged into a whirlpool of war again. Korkabor's expression was filled with fanaticism and excitement, as if he had seen the day his dream came true. Speaking of which, Freed and Barpa still have a lot of fallen angels. They should be holding you back. Why? Korkabor had a bad feeling as he stared at Dustless, who was smiling evilly. It's very simple. The me with Rias and the others is actually just a shadow clone. My true self has never left Chariot King Academy. Poor thing, you stupid crow. You actually thought that your plan was a success. How sad. Dustless was not only powerful but his words were also vicious. Korkabor's face turned green with anger. Wherever the gravitational force went, everything began to float. Korkabor's body could not be controlled, swaying from side to side like a puppet controlled by strings. What's going on? A hint of panic flashed through Korkabor's eyes as he cried out in surprise. He instinctively looked at Dustless. Is this your doing? Noticing the gravitational waves coming from Dustless's direction, Kokeber asked sternly. At the same time he revealed his black wings and flapped them with all his might, trying to stabilize his body and resist Dustless. He originally thought that it would be an easy plan. Who would have thought that the heavens would play a huge joke on him, encountering such a nameless monster that was so powerful that it could easily kill him? A drowning crow can only die. Seeing that Cultivator was resisting the gravitational force, Dustless increased the density of chakra, and the gravitational force of 10,000 heavens pull became even stronger. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the end, Cultivator finally lost control of his body and was pulled over by the gravitational force. Go to hell. Driven mad, Cultivator's murderous intent intensified. He used all his strength to throw out the unformed spear of light. Due to the inertia of the gravitational force, it almost instantly approached Dustless and exploded. Boom boom boom. The dark night sky was sublimated once again, turning into a blinding day for a short period of time. The power of the explosion of the spear of light affected the void within a 100-meter radius. Even the air was vaporized by the aftermath of the explosion, and a suffocating sense of crisis filled the air. Ah, serves you right. You actually dared to provoke me. Arrogant brat, this is your tragic end. Cultivator's expression swept away the haze from before, and a painful smile appeared on his face. He touched his crooked mouth and immediately cursed without caring about his image. That damn brat, you better not have a corpse left. Otherwise I'll definitely explode your corpse for 3 days and then feed it to the dogs. Cultivator was furious. He gently touched his crooked mouth. His heart was bleeding. A dignified high-ranking officer of the fallen angels had his mouth crooked, and he could not even speak clearly, turning into a stutterer. Cultivator regretted it when he thought about it. He should not have killed Dustless and slowly tortured him to death to vent his hatred. Do you hate me that much? A calm and indifferent voice came from within the explosion. Dustless slowly walked out from the explosion of the spear of light. Unharmed. Cultivator looked at Dustless in disbelief, his mouth twitching. He was completely fine after being hit by such a powerful move? This was not a movie. How could it be? Our eyes must be playing tricks on us. Xuanhuan and her family were also shocked. Dustless's eternal face had left an unerasable mark in their hearts. Cultivator, you're too weak. Chapter 1322. Dustless's expression was as cold as ice. His eyes were emotionless as he looked at the screaming Corcobor on the ground. He then took Genova into his arms. Are you hurt? Looking at the frightened Genova, Dustless asked in a hoarse voice. His tone was rare and magnetic, and his cold face quickly warmed up. It was warm and there was a touch of humanity in his voice. I am fine. She realized that Genova's face was burning as she struggled unnaturally. However, her insignificant strength was completely useless in front of Dustless. She was just asking to be humiliated and had no effect at all. Don't move. This guy's not dead yet. Dustless looked at Genova strangely and held her even tighter. Genova's eyes flashed with depression. She felt Dustless tighten his grip. Her face turned even redder as if it could resist blood. Maybe it's because I'm in the middle of a battle and I'm too focused to notice. Genova comforted herself. Dustless was holding on to a large ball of flesh. Due to his strength, it was squashed flat. Genova was also in pain, but she still endured it. I hate it when people threaten me. Dustless raised his glowing greatsword again to stop Corcobor, who was screaming in pain, and said coldly, I could have finished you in one go, but you chose the cruelest way to die. Is the brain of a fallen angel so useless? I'll haunt you even if I become a ghost. Corcobor's face was filled with despair. He no longer wanted to leave alive, especially in his current state. It was useless to leave alive. Therefore he might as well die and drag Dustless down with him. Every second he lived was agony. With a decision in his heart, Corcobor used all the magic in his body to attack his lungs. His body, which had been cut off with 4 limbs, strangely expanded. Still planning to resist? Dustless's expression turned cold. The cold air shooting out from his face was as sharp as a blade. No. Genova shook her head and carefully observed Corcobor's body. Her face was pale. He's going to self-destruct. Self-destruct? Dustless was stunned for a moment before he asked without hesitation. Fallen angels can self-destruct? I remember that only demons can self-destruct. Genova did not expect Dustless to be so stubborn over such a small matter. Sensing the danger, Genova urged, there's nothing strange about this. When I run out of ammunition, I can also self-destruct. Anyway, let's get away from him quickly. This guy is crazy and dangerous. Haha, run? It's useless. My self-destruction can erase this town. Trash demons and trash humans will all go to hell. Everyone can accompany each other on the road to hell. Korkabor laughed maniacally, but he did not see the disdain that flashed across Dustless's face. Ka. Because he had accumulated too much mana, Korkabor could no longer support the immense power. Visible cracks had already appeared on his abdomen. They could see the frightening amount of energy stored in his body. Once it was released, not just Chariot King Academy, but even the city itself would be severely damaged. Boom boom boom. After pausing for a few seconds, Korkabor's body turned into a bloody mist. The huge amount of energy had been released. Everyone tensed up, waiting for the end of the world to come. Divine might. At the same time, the void suddenly twisted violently like a fried dough twist. A huge black hole appeared. The self-destruction that Korkabor had spent so much effort to prepare was swallowed up by divine might before it could explode. He's not dead? The excited Genova opened his eyes. The night sky was exceptionally beautiful, and the stars in the sky were unusually peaceful. In his joy, Genova could not help but stand on his tiptoes, pursed his thin lips and kissed Dustless's right cheek. *CK I was ambushed. Usually I'm the one who ambushes others. Today I was ambushed. Dustless was stunned and looked at Genova in shock. Forget it. This annoying cockroach is completely dead. Dustless breathed a sigh of relief. Even the corpse was gone. Korkabor's aura and corpse had completely disappeared. If he knew that his carefully prepared self-destruction had been countered by Dustless, he would probably die in anger. Looks like we're one step too late. Looks like it's over. An excited voice came from behind. Dustless turned around and saw a beautiful figure descending from the sky. Caught off guard, Dustless fell to the ground. But this was the first time Dustless had been pressed to the ground since he was born, and the initiator was Riaz. Much it hurts. Dustless rubbed his head, showing a pained expression. Sorry, I was too excited. Riaz showed a worried expression. At the same time, she leaned over and kissed Dustless's forehead. She asked with concern, "Does it still hurt? Do you want me to rub it for you?" "It hurts, of course it hurts. This time it's somewhere else." Hearing this, Wuxian looked at Riaz with regret. He wanted to slap himself. How could he waste such a good opportunity on her? What a waste of God's gift. "Where does it hurt?" Riaz asked with concern, hugging Dustless even tighter. "It's here. You were on top of me just now. It hurts. It's probably swollen. It's best if you can help me take a few bites and rub it." Dustless pointed at his lower body. It was the most important part of a man. "You dared to lie to me?" Seeing this, Riaz's face flushed red. She glared fiercely at Wuxian, but while everyone's attention was still focused on the shock of Kobor's death, she discreetly rubbed Wuxian's face a few times. Chapter 1323. Dustless could not stop himself from feeling the soft touch of her hand. He was addicted to it as if he was floating in the clouds. Dustless's soul was immersed in the warm spring water, swimming around in pleasure. TSK, what a natural seductress. After savoring it for a while, Riaz retracted her hand with a blush on her face, leaving Dustless, who was still longing for more. Smack. After gently kissing Riaz's face, Wuxian patted the dust off and stood up unscathed. "You were lying to me, humph?" Riaz saw Dustless standing up proudly and immediately understood that he was making things up. She turned her head away unhappily with a look of disdain. Ahem. Seeing this, Dustless coughed awkwardly. He noticed that everyone was looking at him differently, and some even took a few steps back. Riaz actually I really, croc. Dustless prepared his words and was about to explain seriously when a bright light suddenly flashed in the dark night sky. There was also the sound of space shattering. A mysterious figure in white descended quietly, like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. Only a few people saw his existence as if he had walked out of the shattered space. Those who could sense his presence could be counted on one hand. That's strange. I just caught Korkabor's presence. How did he disappear now? Where did he go? This is so troublesome. If it wasn't for Asashal's orders, I wouldn't waste my time looking for such a boring guy. Forget it, it's just a bunch of bugs. There was a ripple in the sky, followed by a voice mumbling to himself. It sounded extremely narcissistic and arrogant. Who's there? Using the weak moonlight, one could vaguely see the mysterious existence in the void. He wore silver armor, and its smooth surface was extremely bright, so much so that it could even reflect light. He also had a pair of cold and domineering eyes, and when he looked at all things in the world, he revealed a faint contempt. There was no one in this world who could invade his eyes. Forget it, it's too boring. Let's leave and find a place to sleep. A human voice came from within the armor. Just as he was about to turn and leave, an unprecedented agitation came from his body. It was as if he was about to burst into flames. He immediately stopped. That feeling just now, could it be? Hey, what's going on? Why do I feel like I'm going to die from the heat? Hyodo Issei gripped his left arm tightly, or rather he pressed down on his divine armament, the Red Dragon Emperor's gauntlet. There was a scorching current of air entering his body, as if it was going to burn Hyodo Issei to ashes. It made him very uncomfortable, as if he had met his greatest nemesis. No wonder I had such a feeling. So it's you, my old enemy. The mysterious existence floating in the sky murmured, completely ignoring the existence of Silver and the others, treating them as air. Cough cough, this fellow really knows how to act. Dustless was speechless. He naturally knew who this person was. White Dragon Emperor Wally? Yo, long time no see, Red One. Inside the white mech, there was a voice filled with vicissitudes of life. It was the complete opposite of Wally's previous tone. It sounded much more experienced. Long time no see, White One. Hyodo Issei's divine armament suddenly spoke with the same vicissitudes of life. There was no doubt that the person who spoke this time was the Red Dragon Emperor himself. Drake. Looks like you're the host of the Red Dragon Emperor, Hyodo Issei. Your appearance is really disappointing. As he spoke, White Dragon Emperor Wally looked at the sky with a sorrowful expression. This fellow really knows how to act. Seeing this, Dustless pursed his lips. His impression of this narcissistic White Dragon Emperor plummeted. His gaze landed on Hyodo Issei, and a wicked smile flashed across his face. You're so weak that you're not worth my time. I'll let Hyodo Issei beat you up for me. Dustless's smile was especially creepy as he dragged his body toward Hyodo Issei. What did you say? Hyodo Issei was furious. Wally was obviously calling him a piece of trash. We're not that far apart in age, but there's a world of difference in strength. I can already enter the Tyrant Dragon mode, but you're really pathetic. Hyodo Issei, a nobody like you is my enemy? This is really boring. Wally said in a compassionate tone. He was extremely arrogant and looked down on everyone else. It was as if he was at the top. It's necessary to create some pressure for you to catch up with me. Wally's tone suddenly became gloomy. If I suddenly kill your parents, your boring life will also be full. Hurry up. You bastard, if you dare to do that, I'll cut you into 1,000 pieces. Touching a person's reverse scale would result in death, and Hyodo Issei's reverse scale was undoubtedly his parents. Buzz buzz buzz. At the same time, Hyodo Issei's body exploded with unimaginable power. His demonic power surged and a solid emerald light swept out of his body. Get away from him. Sensing the unusual fluctuation of Hyodo Issei's demonic power, Dustless sternly warned the girls. Who's that guy? White Dragon Emperor Wally's gaze also fell on Dustless's head. He felt like he had seen this figure in silhouette before, but he couldn't remember where. However, this guy exploded with such powerful energy. There's an unexpected surprise. Wally's tone was filled with joy. He could feel that Hyodo Issei's aura was rapidly increasing. There was a huge difference between before and after. Could this guy be a pervert? I remember that he's not interested in women. Could he be gay? Dustless shivered and thought maliciously. In his heart, he had already categorized White Dragon Emperor Wally as a comrade. Chapter 1325. Boundless mana erupted, and Hyodo Issei looked like a primordial being that had just woken up. There was no end to the energy wave that erupted from his body, and even Dustless was forced to retreat. Hyodo Issei was burning with green light, and the scene was terrifying. Everything that got close to him was turned into dust. This is going to be fun. Dustless's lips curled up slightly, and then he sat down on the ground and looked like he was going to enjoy the show. How is this possible? That kid just said a few words and this idiot exploded? What kind of freak is he? White Dragon Emperor Wally sensed the energy wave that was overflowing from Hyodo Issei's body. His tone was unstable and his body was shaking. The energy wave that erupted from Hyodo Issei's body was even stronger than his current state. I heard that you have never been beaten up before. Today I will let you experience what it feels like to be beaten up by someone. Stupid White Dragon Emperor. Dustless glanced at White Dragon Emperor Wally, and then raised his arm and shouted, Issei Kun, in order to not be castrated, in order to not have your eyes and limbs dug out, use all your power and defeat this jinx in one fell swoop, and build your own harem camp. When he mentioned the word harem, Hyodo Issei was as excited as if he was injected with chicken blood. He stomped his feet on the ground and shot into the sky like a cannonball. Boom, boom, boom. Hyodo Issei was like a rocket, and his feet were emitting high-density energy waves as he shot into the sky. White Dragon Emperor is going to be unlucky this time. Dustless kept loosening his shoulders, and the smirk on his face became even more obvious. You, Riaz and the other girls looked at Dustless speechlessly, and then they looked at each other and did not know whether to laugh or cry. They did not know whether this Hyodo Issei was too naive or too stupid. Anyone could tell that Dustless's words were all made up to provoke Hyodo Issei. Bang, bang, bang. At the same time, two figures, one red and one white, were fighting fiercely in the sky, and the result of the battle was quite clear. Hyodo Issei, who had unleashed his little universe, was as ferocious as if he was on drugs, and he grabbed White Dragon Emperor and beat him up. You want to castrate me and destroy my harem dreams? Hyodo Issei grabbed White Dragon Emperor Wally's neck, and his eyes blazing, and he shouted, "Then I'll beat you until you can't take care of yourself." The more Hyodo Issei spoke, the more excited he became. The Red Dragon Emperor's feedback was getting stronger and stronger. White Dragon Emperor Wally felt like he was being beaten up like a little kid. Boom, boom. Issei's aura was still rising. He clenched his right fist and punched White Dragon Emperor Wally's head mercilessly. Crack. He didn't even have the time to spread his wings and absorb the attack. The divine armor that covered his head was destroyed by the ferocious Hyuga Issei. And Issei heated to Issei. You're really something. You managed to fool Hyodo Issei with just a few words. Riaz attacked from behind and hugged Dustless tightly from behind. The billowing snowball was also squashed and turned into an oval-shaped meat patty. Dustless's mind was stirred up, and he closed his eyes to enjoy it for a while. You bastard, you said you were willing, and now I'm in such a sorry state. What kind of magic potion did you feed him? How can a piece of trash have such powerful combat power? White Dragon Emperor Wally, who was spitting out blood, gritted his teeth and touched his mouth, which was already sunken in. He was shocked by Hyodo Issei's combat power. This is all your fault. Wally glared at Dustless with endless murderous intent. Dustless had made him suffer this time. White Dragon Emperor Wally's invincible legend was trampled on by a piece of trash. And the culprit was this young man in front of him who looked similar to him on the surface. Who the hell are you? Tell me your name. White Dragon Emperor Wally questioned, even ignoring Hyodo Issei who was beside him. I'm just a nameless junior. Dustless smiled and bowed slightly to introduce himself. My name is Dustless, please take care of me in the future. Hearing this, he frowned slightly. He was sure that he had heard this name before, but because he was too annoyed, he could not remember it. He's the one who killed your subordinate in one move, Wally. White Dragon Emperor's voice spread out, and it was filled with surprise. I see. No wonder I felt that you were familiar. It seems that beautiful monkey and Black Song were defeated by you. White Dragon Emperor Wally was full of fighting spirit. Compared to Hyodo Issei's moment of brilliance, he wanted to challenge the mysterious Dustless more. Get up and fight with me. White Dragon Emperor Wally said excitedly. His broken mech was repaired perfectly again. Let's forget about it. Hearing this, Wu Qin shook his head decisively. He glanced at White Dragon Emperor Wally with pity and said softly, You are not even as good as the little brother that I created at the last minute. Don't you think that your idea is too funny and ridiculous to fight one-on-one with me? Dustless mocked. He cared about the infinite dragon god Orpheus. As for White Dragon Emperor Wally, no matter when it started, Dustless never regarded him as an opponent. Are you looking down on me? White Dragon Emperor Wally clenched his fist angrily, and his tone was obviously low, filled with indescribable ominous feeling. I'm not looking down on you. Our starting line is not the same. You're too far away. Gently glancing at White Dragon Emperor Wally, Dustless turned around and left with the girls. Don't even think about leaving. White Dragon Emperor Wally did not give up. He flapped his wings and swept out like lightning. Chapter 1326. A dense storm came from behind. Dustless suddenly felt as if he was locked on by the claws of an eagle and the eyes of an eagle, wanting to devour him. Stupid thing, do you really think you are invincible? Wu Qin stopped and turned his head to reveal half of his face. Wu Qin turned a deaf ear to White Dragon Emperor Wally who was galloping toward him. He only gave a simple summary of the situation. What a self-righteous and arrogant young man. Little did he know that in this world where gods were everywhere, he was now just a very common existence, just like Dustless's former third brother, Uchiha Sasuke. Although he had high potential, he was now just a tiny grain of sand. Come here, don't even think about leaving. White Dragon Emperor's speed was extraordinary. His big hand covered with silver armor grabbed Dustless's head. Poochie. With a gentle grab, Dustless's head shattered and turned into bursts of photons. What's going on? White Dragon Emperor Wally felt incredible, and his tone was full of shock. This is one of my thousands of abilities, elemental transformation. Dustless calmly told him everything to satisfy White Dragon Emperor's curiosity. No matter what you understand, I have to tell you, with your strength, let alone defeating me, you can't even touch my body. You look down on me? White Dragon Emperor Wally asked in a hoarse voice. His tone was full of anger and anger. Whoosh. At the same time, he didn't believe it and attacked again, turning into a storm and rushing toward Dustless. Boom. A heavy punch fell and Dustless's abdomen collapsed again. However, what made Wally depressed was that Dustless himself was not hurt at all, and there was always a faint smile on the corner of his mouth, silently mocking him for overestimating himself. Facing Dustless, White Dragon Emperor Wally had a strange feeling in his heart. This was the most tragic thing in the world. The enemy was right in front of you, but even if you exhausted all your means, you couldn't shake him at all. Not to mention fighting with the enemy, even touching his body was as difficult as ascending to the sky. Do you only know how to use despicable tricks? White Dragon Emperor Wally had nowhere to vent his anger. He could only lose control of his emotions and yell, "It seems that you are just a small character. You have failed to live up to my expectations of you." Helpless, he could only provoke Dustless verbally. Who asked him to be so heaven-defying? However, Dustless was unmoved. He gave him a look of pity and turned around to walk away. You forced me to do this. The White Dragon Emperor's sinister gaze circled around Rias and the others. A look of savagery flashed across his eyes. I heard that Rias Gimli is your fiancé. If I'm not wrong, she shouldn't have the ability to avoid physical attacks. After saying that, White Dragon Emperor Wally looked at Dustless with a confident smile. Instead, his palm was sore. At the same time, Dustless's form also changed dramatically. His whole body turned into a dark monster. Under the moonlight, it reflected a cold light. He entered the state of armament hockey. Chapter 1327. White Dragon Emperor Wally was shocked, and his calm eyes rolled up. He didn't know why, facing Dustless in such a state, he suddenly regretted it. Specifically, he didn't know. In short, it was a simple word: regret. If I remember correctly, you should be 20 years old this year. Logically speaking, I shouldn't lower myself to your level, but you, this problem child, don't seem to appreciate it. You don't know what's good for you and want a yard after getting an inch. Wu Chen's eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent. He had experienced several worlds and was an out-and-out monster who was hundreds of years old. He didn't intend to bully him. However, this kid didn't know when to back down and asked for a beating. Don't you want to witness my strength? Now I've changed my mind. Open your dog eyes and see it clearly. As his voice fell, Dustless's body merged into the darkness, disappearing with a swoosh. Where did he go? White Dragon Emperor Wally quickly looked around. It was the first time he had seen such an abnormal movement speed, which coincided with the fleeting speed of light. Idiot, behind you. Mockery sounded behind him, and White Dragon Emperor Wally quickly turned his head and greeted him with a dark iron fist. Boom. The fist covered with armament hockey was invincible, and under the brutal and powerful attack, White Dragon Emperor Wally suddenly disappeared. Boom boom boom. On the wall 100 meters away, Wally was deeply trapped in it, and the artifact covering his face was broken again. Not only that, but his right face was still red and swollen. Wally, I have a bad feeling. That guy is not right. White Dragon Emperor Arubian's cautious voice suddenly came. Through a series of previous observations, he came to a terrible conclusion. This guy is incredibly strong. Maybe this time we really opened Pandora's box and released an incredible guy. I see. Wally stood up with difficulty. His handsome face was gloomy and he said in a hoarse voice, "No wonder Orpheus wants to join forces with him. But I can't accept it." Staring at Dustless resolutely, Wally's eyes were as sharp as a knife, full of vigor. It's not shameful to lose, but I can't accept being defeated like this. At the very least, I have to use my full strength to fight him. Even if I lose, I'll be willing to accept it. The broken artifact healed again, and Varley returned to his previous state. "Sigh, we're probably going to be in trouble together this time." White Dragon Emperor Rubian let out a long sigh. If Wally was beaten up, he would also be unlucky. Therefore he could only do his best to help Wally. And as Wally said, it would be too cowardly if he threw away his armor and surrendered without even fighting. Especially when his nemesis, the Red Dragon Emperor Deleg, was watching. Swish, swish. With a flap of his wings, Wally, who had put on his artifact again, whizzed over. He clenched his fist and punched. "What's the use of such a weak fist?" Raising his eyelids, Dustless glanced at Wally, who was full of fighting spirit. He felt like he was bullying a child. Feeling bored, he gave up on fighting back and signaled Wally to attack. Bang, bang, bang. A series of punches landed on Dustless. He was like a punching bag. He didn't fight back and just stood there motionless. Wally's punches landed on him, and there was only a boom 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 sound. Meanwhile, Dustless himself was unharmed. He just looked at the crazy Wally with pity. Boom boom boom. The punches were still raining down. Dustless just stood there motionless, allowing Wally to fight back. Gulp. This unprecedented scene shocked everyone. Whether it was Riaz, Sangna, or Hyoto Issei and his artifact, the Red Dragon Emperor, they were all deeply shocked. Dustless, who was being attacked, looked calm. The attacks that landed on his body were like continuous rain. He didn't feel anything at all. How is this possible? How can there be someone in this world who can take so many hits? The Red Dragon Emperor, Deleg, shouted in disbelief. He and the White Dragon Emperor were the two heavenly dragons. Their strength could be ranked in the top 10 in this world. Even if Wally couldn't unleash the full strength of the White Dragon Emperor, he shouldn't be so powerless. Dustless just stood there and let him hit him. He couldn't even move. There was no reaction at all. Ah! As if he was deeply affected, Wally suddenly roared at the sky. His tone was filled with endless anger. He then turned into a divine rainbow and flew into the sky. He released all the energy stored in his wings. His strength was always at its peak. Because Wally released too much energy, the originally dark night suddenly became extremely bright. Everyone smelled danger. There was a voice in their hearts that urged them to run. Wally uncharacteristically reached out his palm and clenched it into a fist. He shouted, "White Dragon Emperor's territory." Buzz buzz buzz. It was as if the end of the world had suddenly arrived. The void was distorting at a speed visible to the naked eye. Energy ripples floated out from Wally's hand. Everything that came into contact with it was reduced in size by half. "Partner, retreat quickly. He's distorting this space. We might suffer as well." As the White Dragon Emperor's archenemy, Deleg knew all of his moves like the back of his hand. What? All of them will be reduced in size by half. Hearing that, Hyoto Issei instinctively shrunk his legs. Dustless's words earlier had already left a shadow in his heart. What's wrong with my thing being reduced by half? Hyoto Issei thought angrily. Unknowingly, an earth-shattering energy wave exploded from his body. At the same time, a high-density energy wave also exploded from Dustless's body. Chapter 1328. After experiencing several worlds in succession, Dustless's strength had been tempered and reached the peak of perfection. Moreover, the current world was relatively low-end. Even if the deities were everywhere, and there were even people who had surpassed the deities, Dustless was not afraid at all. Boom, boom, boom. The power that had accumulated in his body for hundreds of years exploded and dispersed. The Chariot King Academy disappeared in an instant. The boundless tide of energy spread out, and the vast and endless horizon suddenly seemed to have been blown up by waves, one after another, stretching out for dozens of kilometers. Even the stars and the moon in the sky were covered by the waves. The distorted space instantly calmed down. Dustless did not even make a move. He used his own aura to suppress the gradually shrinking dimension, and everything returned to normal. What kind of power is this? White Dragon Emperor Wally opened his mouth and loosened his clenched fists. He was desperate. Although he had the ability to absorb other people's energy, Wally did not dare to act rashly at this moment. If he acted rashly, he was afraid that his body would explode from the scattered energy waves. Also, if he was swept by the majestic energy waves, he would have a feeling of kneeling down and submitting. It was extremely oppressive and domineering. Whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, a large number of photons floated from the sky and circled around White Dragon Emperor Wally's head. This is... He looked up at the light that shrouded his head in a daze. He had a bad feeling. Just as he was about to retreat, a golden light beam fell from the sky and locked onto him. Light speed kick. White Dragon Emperor Wally did not even have time to react before he was suppressed by a powerful force. Boom, boom, boom. He was mercilessly kicked down from a height of more than 10 meters. He was dizzy from the fall and almost fainted. Wally smashed a large deep hole in the ground. No, this guy is too scary. I only have a chance of winning if I enter the T-Rex mode. With this thought in mind, Wally was about to reveal his true appearance when he suddenly felt pain on his old face. Whoa whoa. Wally roared with all his might, but he realized that he could not speak. A huge foot sealed his face. Dustless looked down at White Dragon Emperor Wally with a deadly expression. He had trampled on his dignity and pride until they were worthless. He had used his overwhelming strength to severely injure Wally. He had displayed strength beyond the knowledge of living creatures. I advised you not to provoke me before. Do you regret it now? Woo woo woo. Wally protested loudly, but his face and mouth were stepped on by Dustless, so he couldn't speak at all. He could only whimper, looking extremely aggrieved. You don't have a good memory. Dustless aimed at Wally's eyes, and the latter immediately felt the aura of death. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Chapter 1329. In the blink of an eye, it was the morning of the next day. After yesterday's battle, everyone was exhausted. Dustless was no exception. He had been tortured by the White Dragon Emperor Wally. Woo woo woo, Dustless yawned lazily. Suddenly he realized that his body was heavy. He instinctively opened his tired eyes, and the scene that greeted him stunned him. Riaz, Aisha, and this girl with aqua blue hair. Genova? Dustless opened his eyes and was shocked to find that he was wrapped in 3 balls of flesh. Riaz was holding onto Dustless's left arm, while Aisha was holding onto his right arm. As for her legs, they were held tightly by Genova. Dustless could even feel her impressive cleavage. F***ck, what's going on? Dustless was petrified. He could understand Riaz and Aisha's actions, but why Genova? Dustless could not figure it out no matter how hard he scratched his head. Hee. After a while, Dustless's lips curled into a perverted smile. Since he could not figure it out, then he should not think about it. After all, he was not at a disadvantage, and the 3 beauties in front of him were already in his mouth. If he still stood there like an idiot, he would be letting down his heroic performance yesterday. Believing in the principle of not taking advantage of others, Dustless's hands began to move restlessly. You are my fiancé. Touching other women in front of me, have you considered my feelings? Dustless paused and turned his head. Riaz looked at him, her words filled with jealousy and jealousy. You are right, but shouldn't you fulfill your duty in advance? Dustless retracted his hands and pointed at the most important part of himself as a man. He said righteously, after yesterday's battle, I am very tired. He is even more tired. Riaz, fulfill your duty as his fiancé and reward him. Hearing that, Riaz's face turned as red as an apple. Definitely not. Riaz shook her head like a rattle drum. There was no room for compromise. Since you are not fulfilling your duty as his fiancé, then I have no need to follow your rules. I have been holding it in for a long time, and now I need to vent. After that, Dustless turned around and looked at Aisha's sleeping face. He waved his hands again. Just as he was about to reach Aisha, Riaz jumped out and interrupted him. No, I won't allow you to do that. Your first time must be mine. Riaz sat on Dustless's body and said resolutely with her hands on her hips. My first time? Hearing this, Wu Qin laughed involuntarily. How many times had he given Riaz? But that's of the mind's eyes of it, of the world of course I'm. But eyes of the eyes, eye of the eye. Of the eye of the eyes of the eyes. Riaz scratched her head, looking like she was having a headache. She did not expect to be troubled by something like this. Riaz, why don't I remind you? Chapter 1330. Dustless did not know whether to laugh or cry at this. Aisha, Riaz, and Junai all looked natural. Needless to say, they had already guessed the news of Rina E and Genova moving in. Silver was the only one who was in the dark. Is this Michael's arrangement? Dustless asked with a frown as he locked onto Genova, who did not care about his image at all. He felt that something was amiss. Call him Lord Michael. Genova said unhappily with a straight face but still explained, it is indeed Lord Michael's idea. Our current strength is still lacking, so Lord Michael asked us to come out and train. It would be best if we could find a suitable powerhouse to be our master. As you know, Rina E and I are not familiar with this place, so we have no choice but to stay at Junai's place temporarily. Plus, you are a barely decent master, so we decided to stay here. Genova said as if everything was normal. He did not seem to care about Dustless's darkened face. Barely decent master? F*ck, are you looking down on me? Dustless stared at Genova gloomily before finally looking at Ria's. Although this was Junai's house, Junai would not allow someone from the church to stay here without Ria's permission. Alright, it seems that the fallen angels, demons and angels will be having a tripartite peace talk recently. Dustless's eyes sparkled. He had almost forgotten about this. In that case, it was normal for Rias to accept it. It would show the demon's sincerity. Hey, you sold me out without my permission. If you're so powerful, why don't you go to heaven? Dustless grabbed Rias's clothes and questioned her softly. Heaven? Isn't that simple? Rias was confused. She immediately revealed her black demonic wings and was about to fly. Stop playing dumb. You can be the master. I'm not interested in such a thankless task. Dustless saw that Rias was just brushing him off, so he decided to be direct. Is that so? Hearing that, Rias was extremely calm and composed. She was not worried about Dustless rejecting her at all. Instead, she moved her impressive figure closer to Dustless's side. He pointed at her rosy lips and said, "It seems that you don't want to experience this morning's activity again." Gulp. Dustless choked on his sobs as his eyes shone with the light of a wolf. Even though it was his first time experiencing it, he could not find fault with Rias's eloquence. No. Although I feel that it's not bad, it's too troublesome this time. I have to increase the stakes and change to another place. Suddenly thinking of something, Dustless changed his mind. Oh. Rias's face was burning. Wuxian was hinting that she should use her second mouth. She still felt that she was too young. Idiot, didn't I tell you before? Women have 3 mouths. Dustless made his intentions clear and said, I need your third mouth. That place, I've never tried it before, Rias. Hearing that, Rias's face turned red like an apple. Chapter 1331. Hearing Dustless's explanation, Venelana and Gilifia let go of their resistance. Whether it was the demon realm, the real world where humans lived, or even the territory of the angels, it was common for men and women to bathe together. It was nothing to be surprised about. It was just a local custom. Alright then. I've been a little tired lately and I need to relax. Venelana was relieved as she winked at Dustless. After all, both of them had done it before. Bathing in the hot spring was no big deal. I know. Dustless chuckled and winked at Venelana. Well, how about? Thinking of Dustless's eccentric personality, Gilifia decisively refused. However, before she could finish her sentence, Dustless stood out and exposed her, making Gilifia feel depressed and anxious. I say, Ms. Gilifia, you're not giving face to Lias and Auntie. Is it wrong for you to bathe in the hot spring with them? With a smirk in his eyes, Wuxian said in a strange tone. Hearing that, Gilifia opened her mouth but found herself speechless. As a servant of the Gimli family, she had to follow orders from above unconditionally. Even though she was Sizax's wife, she was still working. As the future son-in-law of the Gimli family, she had to call Dustless young master. I understand, Ms. Lias, Lady Venelana. Gilifia glared at Dustless before bowing to Lias and Venelana. I'll go prepare the things you need. Please wait for a moment. Having said that, Gilifia left without a trace, always wearing a professional expression. Gilifia really doesn't know how to have fun. She always looks at me like I'm a pervert. Dustless complained in his mind. He couldn't help but feel jealous of Sizax. He thought that even though he had taken Gilifia's body, he couldn't take her heart. Was a pity. In the small space, steam filled the air and a few figures could be seen in the smoke. This was a small hot spring in Junai's home. Dustless and the other 3 were squeezed together, sticking close to each other. Each of them only covered the important parts, so skin contact was unavoidable. Tsk. Junai is so smart. I must have built this small place. Wuxian hummed a song with a pleasant expression. His behavior was lazy. He looked as comfortable and relaxed as if he was smoking a big cigarette. He moved left and right, which was better than a living immortal. He was sandwiched between Gilifia and Venelana. Speaking of which, why did Gilifia and Auntie come to the human world? Wuxian asked curiously, abandoning the strange emotions in his heart. The meat was right in front of his mouth and there was no need to fight for it. After all, they couldn't outrun Dustless, who could move at the speed of light. The 3-way meeting between fallen angels, demons and angels is about to begin. The meeting location this time is Chariot King Academy where you are. Gilifia and I came here to tell you to pay attention to some details. What a bewitching seductress. Dustless mumbled to himself. He was really afraid that he would not be able to suppress himself and would be devoured by this demon. The lifespan of a demon was almost infinite. Even though Venelana was already a grandmother, she was still able to turn the world upside down. Rather than saying that she was Rias Muchin, it would be more appropriate to say that she was her sister. Most importantly, Venelana was a mature poppy. In terms of being a woman, she was far more mature than the young Rias. Venelana's smile and movements were extremely moving. Her pure water eyes made people unable to shift their gazes away from her. Tiske, you said that I can do anything to you, right? Dustless's wicked knife circled around Venelana's peerless body. She suddenly felt that those things in the past were really old. It was time to play some new tricks. I need to pee. This place is not suitable. Junai's nose is very sensitive. If I pee he will definitely find me. Dustless pretended to be in a difficult position, but he was actually looking at Riaz's mother with a perverted expression. That's troublesome. Hearing that, Venelana blinked. She naturally understood what he meant. She then took the initiative to stand in front of Dustless. She opened her mouth slightly, and an orchid fragrance came out of it. If you don't mind, just like before, please pee all over here. Hearing that, Dustless could not help but suspect that Riaz's father was definitely not good in a certain aspect. Otherwise, Venelana would not be so crazy. She would not reject any of Dustless's requests. Thank you for your hospitality. I won't hold back then. Since Venelana took the initiative to come to him, Dustless naturally would not hold back. After aiming at her thin lips, he completely turned into a demon king at that moment. Since Riaz and the others always called him the reincarnation of the sex god, Dustless would be a competent sex god this time. My cute mother-in-law, how does it taste? After a while, Dustless's face was full of naughty smiles. This was not the first time. He did not feel much when he did it. After all, living creatures were creatures of habit. Cough, cough, cough. Venelana looked at Dustless with a reproachful look. Her throat was very choked. Just as she was about to rest for a while, she was held down by Dustless and could not move. Then, Venelana suddenly felt that it was much heavier. Let's play a game of horse riding. My cute mother-in-law, please ride the horse. Dustless smiled naughtily. At the same time, he used all his strength to pat Venelana's butt. Instantly, a few deep red palm prints were left. It was so painful that her face changed slightly, but she endured it. Chapter 1333. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, a week had passed. At this moment, in the Supernatural Research Lab in the Chariot King Academy. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Ripples of light rose from the ground and a magic array appeared. A handsome man with long red hair and clad in armor slowly emerged from the magic array. Lord Sizax. All the family members in the room bowed slightly, their faces full of respect. Really, why did you drag me into this kind of situation? Dustless lowered his head and groaned in protest. He did not have time to play games with Sizax here, especially with this kind of identity game. Dustless, whose status was not as high as Sizax, could only bow and scrape. It's not a big deal. I'll just take it back from your mother with interest later. Dustless thought happily. In the past few days he had turned Venelana into a high-end saintess in front of people, and an extremely lewd slut in secret. Venelana would do anything Dustless asked for by Dustless. Of course it was not without a price. During this period, Dustless gave Venelana a Logia devil fruit, which made her happy. Dustless fought with Dustless for a day and a night until she completely collapsed and fainted. Only then did Dustless stop. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Immediately after, the magic circle that Sizax stepped out of flashed with a dazzling light, and a beautiful girl with a ponytail and fair skin rushed out. Seraphil? God has been kind to me, and I'm destined to enjoy the happiness of having multiple partners. The appearance of one of the demon lords, Leviathan Seraphil, made Dustless's heart tremble. Her short, but curvy body made Dustless unable to stop himself. Just you wait. Sooner or later I'll make you pay back double for sure. As if noticing Dustless's attention, Seraphil suddenly turned her head and snorted coldly. She would not let go of the grudge of having her virginity forcibly taken by Dustless, absolutely not. This little girl is very vengeful. Dustless awkwardly rubbed his nose and tactfully retracted his gaze from Seraphil. Lias. His gaze passed through the crowd and finally landed on Riaz and Dustless beside her. He said with great satisfaction, "Well done, a fallen angel of Korkabor's level as expected of my sister." Well actually, after Sazak said that, Riaz immediately became bashful and embarrassed. The person who killed Cockbur was actually Dustless. Riaz's words caused an uproar among the crowd. Everyone stared at the skinny, slightly hunchbacked young man beside her, dumbfounded. "If he's the one who killed Korkabor, I believe it," Leviathan Raffles, one of the Demon Kings, said in a cunning tone. "What does this little girl mean? She must be up to something. She wouldn't help me for no reason." Not only was Dustless not happy, but he also began to think about Seraphal's intentions. The weasel is up to no good. Let's be on guard for now. Unable to think of anything, Dustless calmed down. Chapter 1335. Wuxian naturally understood their disdain. He had the power to destroy the heavens and exterminate the earth, but he didn't have the dream of dominating the world. Instead, he only wanted to live in a drunken stupor. Perhaps in their eyes, Wuxian was already beyond saving and had been possessed by a sex fiend. Even Riaz's brother, Sazax, also cast a disappointed look at Dustless, as if he expected better from him. He still hoped that Dustless would help him in the future, but now it seemed like it was just a pipe dream. "Idiot, I'm thinking for you. If one day I really plan to dominate the world, you arrogant demon kings and gods will all be swept into the garbage dump of history as dust." Dustless curled his lips in disdain. With his strength he could easily rule the world. "Don't mind it, no matter what choice you make, I will support you." Riaz grabbed Dustless's little hand and put it on her chest and said solemnly. Dustless felt a warm current flowing through his heart. He was silent as if he was planning something. After a while he smiled gently. "Riaz, actually, I think it's not bad to push you to the position of ruling the world." However, Riaz did give Dustless a coquettish look and chuckled. "Actually, I'm not good at scheming. It's too tiring to live like that. To be honest, I'm really afraid that you have the idea of unifying the world." Hearing this, Dustless shook his head. The world of One Piece, Naruto, and Shinigami, almost the entire planet was wiped out by him. At first, the feeling of ruling the world was not bad, but in the end it gradually became boring. There was no joy in it at all. Living and scheming all day was really tiring. The feeling of being lonely at the top was sometimes very annoying. "My dream." At this moment, White Dragon Emperor Wally suddenly spoke, attracting the attention of Dustless and Riaz. They looked at him at the same time, like a star in the eyes of millions of people. "I just want to defeat 2 people. There is no other purpose other than the first time." White Dragon Emperor Wally said calmly, without any fluctuation in his tone. 2 people? It seems like he only wants to defeat Gardard, the Great Red. Since when did another one appear? Could it be the infinite dragon god Orpheus? Or did he discover the potential of Hyodo Kazunari and want to defeat him? Dustless guessed, but he noticed that Riaz was looking at him with a half smile. "You seem to have forgotten to include yourself. You have given him too much of a shadow. If I were him, I would also want to defeat you at all costs, not to mention White Dragon Emperor Wally, who is arrogant and thinks that he is superior to others." Riaz rolled her eyes and said. White Dragon Emperor Wally's life had been smooth sailing, but he suddenly met Dustless, this malefic star. He was beaten to a pulp and lost all his prestige. Anyone would be traumatized, let alone someone like Wally. Buzz buzz buzz. Ka-ka-ka. Boom boom boom. At this moment, a strange tremor came from the heavens and earth. The Supernatural Research Department, where the 3 factions were having a meeting, suddenly trembled and fell into a strange atmosphere. This is, Sazax, Seraphil, Archangel Michael, and Athasiel all changed their expressions as a bad feeling flashed through their minds. Looks like it is about to begin. White Dragon Emperor Wally laughed in his mind as he looked at Dustless with a burning desire to fight. TSK, looks like we are being attacked. People nowadays are so bold. There is a Demon King here." Dustless walked to the window and looked at the changes in the outside world. He broke the tense atmosphere with a teasing tone. The dimension outside was quickly twisting as if it was under some mysterious curse. The entire world was rippling and filled with a murderous aura. At the same time, countless small vortexes appeared in the void, and a swarm of enemies came out from them, almost surrounding the entire sky. This ability to control time and space. Could it be? Riaz and Sazax looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. They seemed to have guessed who it was. Gasper. Both Riaz and Sazaks thought of this name. He was the only one who had this ability, but due to some special reasons, Riaz had to seal Gasper away. Who would have thought that someone she had forgotten would become a pawn for the enemy? Buzz buzz buzz. A large group of mages kept pouring out from the other side of the dimension like an endless swarm of ants. If we don't seal this dimension in time, we will be killed by the human wave tactic sooner or later, Sazaks said solemnly. His pupils were filled with crimson light as destructive magic vibrated. No one dared to look him in the eye. Sazaks was very clear about his personal and private grudges. He looked at Riaz with a stern gaze. Riaz, this is all you're doing. I'm sorry, brother. This is all my fault. If I had let Gasper manage me, this wouldn't have happened. Riaz's expression was complicated as bitterness lingered in her heart. She did not feel good. She had chosen to escape when faced with setbacks and difficulties, and now she had only herself to blame for this. This is not a big problem. We just need to find Gasper. Dustless stretched and said as if it was as easy as eating and drinking. This was a simple answer, but everyone knew how difficult it was. It was easier said than done to find Riaz's minion, Gasper. It may sound simple, but doing it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Easy for you to say. Since you are so capable, do it yourself. White Dragon Emperor Wally, who was not on good terms with Dustless, said. He was wary of Dustless, but that did not mean he was afraid. He would not be afraid of anyone, not even the Great Red, the real Red Dragon Emperor, let alone Dustless. Chapter 1336. Staring at White Dragon Emperor Wally with interest, Dustless secretly despised him. In fact, the sudden attack this time was inextricably linked to him. His boring provocation was probably to force Dustless into a trap. Fine, I'll see what tricks you have up your sleeve. I'll play you to death. Facing White Dragon Emperor Wally's provocation, Dustless chose to fight back. He opened the window resolutely, and a majestic energy wave surged in his body as if he was about to fly out. Dustless, don't be fooled. This guy is doing it on purpose. Riaz stared at White Dragon Emperor Wally angrily, and her tone was filled with hostility. She said sharply, "Fallen angels are not good people either." Hearing that, Asashel frowned and looked at Riaz, who was on top of her head. His lips moved. The first 2 times were indeed the responsibility of the fallen angels. To make up for my sins, I'm willing to help you this time. This kid still has a conscience. Dustless also stopped complaining about Amano Shima's sneak attack. He knew that although Asashel's mouth was sometimes vicious and his personality was a little perfunctory, sometimes he was unbelievably reliable. You want to deal with so many mages alone? Looking at the mages who covered the entire sky outside the window, Sadix frowned with a strange look in his eyes. No matter how many bugs there are, it will never change anything. Dustless said calmly. He did not care about the mages in the sky at all. The higher you stand, the worse you fall. I hope you don't fall to your death later. If you do, I won't save you. White Dragon Emperor Wally said in a strange tone, mocking Dustless. Hee. Hearing that, Dustless laughed and said in disdain, "If there is someone in this world who can make me fall to my death, I'm sure that person is definitely not you." White Dragon Emperor Wally's mouth twitched, and he could only retract his anger. Anyway, the plan has begun. Wait for me to activate Tyrant Dragon mode. You'll see. Wally held back. He already knew about this, and even the mastermind behind it knew. The mastermind was the old Demon King's faction. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Dustless's appearance attracted a rain of bullets. The rays of light that filled the sky merged into a large area, transforming into a multicolored sky that blasted over. Petty tricks. Dustless let out a soft sigh as boundless energy fluctuations erupted from his body. His left eye twisted, and the black pupil was replaced by a purple one. Ripples spread out and 9 black magatama hung on it. Wherever Dustless's eyes swept, the void would ripple, and the magicians would collapse and squat on the ground, trembling. What kind of eyes are those? The appearance of the Rinnegan shocked everyone. The moment the strange eyes appeared, Dustless's temperament also changed. A man with a cheeky smile had suddenly turned into a god who viewed all living things as grass. Chapter 1337. All in all, everyone present had a clear understanding of Dustless. It shouldn't be a problem for him to surpass me. Looks like destroying Riaz and Phoenix's marriage and betrothing her to Dustless was the right choice. Demon King Sazaks let out a hearty smile. He was quite happy with his brilliant decision. Of course, if he had wanted to see the changes in his wife, xianxia, he might have been unhappy and put on a constipated expression. How is this guy so powerful? Xianxia's delicate face was burning. Looking at the majestic young man in the sky who seemed to be able to kill anything in his way, a strange feeling spread in her heart. After all, she had a special relationship with Dustless. They had even had sex before. Go. Junai and Ria stood side by side, looking up at Dustless who was going on a killing spree. Both of them had their own ulterior motives. Junai's eyes were filled with faint starlight. Since ancient times, beauties loved heroes. That was an unchanging law. Ria's, lend me Dustless for a few days. Junai stroked Ria's hair and said with a dazed expression. Lend him to you? You want to have him, don't you? I know you too well, Junai. Don't even think about it. Rias put her hands on her hips and rejected Junai's harsh request. Humph, you arrogant brat. Demon King Seraphil snorted. At the same time, a strange feeling arose in her heart. Her delicate and perfect face had a complicated expression. After all, she and xianxia had been forced to have sex by Dustless before. Maybe it's not a bad idea to have him as a backer. Life was like rape. Since there was no way to resist, one could only enjoy it silently. As a demon king, Seraphil naturally understood such a simple logic. All in all, everyone had their own thoughts at the moment. Even Archangel Michael had a faint smile on his face. He had sent two of his subordinates, Genova and Wisteria Rena, to Dustless. In the future they could always have pillow talk. At this moment, Dustless naturally did not understand their thoughts. He was focused on the dense black vortex in front of him. It should be there. The observation hockey spread out, and Dustless keenly felt that one of them was unusual. His body glowed with faint photons and turned into a flash of light. In a mysterious unknown space, a young girl wearing a gothic lowly dress sat in the air, swinging her legs in boredom. Her jade-like hand was holding her chin, and her eyes were dull and confused. She looked very bored. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the dark space, a large amount of light lingered, and in an instant, it was incomparably bright. The girl also turned her head from her daze, and a satisfied smile appeared on her face. Brat, your strength is not bad. I only released a little of my power, and you were able to discover my existence. Your strength is not bad and I am very satisfied. Therefore, I said that you are not inferior to me. The adorable girl said seriously. Buzz buzz buzz. In the dark space, a large amount of light condensed and quickly compressed into a human figure. Finally, it turned into a handsome young man with eyes as bright as the stars. You're not Gasper. Looks like I've come to the wrong place. Dustless frowned and looked at the girl in front of him. He suddenly felt that she was familiar, but he was sure that he had never seen her before, and there was no impression of her. The girl was wearing a gothic lowly dress, and her dark ink-like hair was dancing in the wind. Her skin was white and beautiful, and her jade face was as dazzling as the bright moon. Her deep eyes were very pure and clean, without the slightest flaw. Dustless thought about it and realized that he still didn't know her, but she was somewhat similar to a vague outline in his mind. He had to ask tentatively, Infinite Dragon God Orpheus? You know me? The girl's pupils splashed with faint ripples, and her tone was somewhat surprised. I don't know, I've heard of your legend. Dustless replied truthfully. There were very few people in the world who had seen the infinite dragon god Orpheus, but there were many people who had heard of his legend, and Dustless was one of them. You've heard of my legend? That's even better. Be my subordinate obediently, and I'll give you power to help me defeat that evil dragon that's disturbing my peace. When the word evil dragon was mentioned, the infinite dragon god Orpheus' naturally dull face had a rare touch of emotion. Evil dragon? Hearing this, Dustless was speechless, but he understood what Orpheus was talking about. He immediately shook his head and said, I'm sorry, I'm not interested now, and I don't have the extra time to be your subordinate. Although I'm very curious about the great real red dragon god emperor, it's impossible for you to use me to fight against the great red. Orpheus blinked and seemed to be confused. She looked at Dustless in confusion and said, I'm lending you my power, and you're helping me to fight against that evil dragon. Is there anything wrong with that? Of course not. Firstly, I don't need your power. Secondly, I'm not your subordinate, and there's no need for me to fight against the great real red dragon god emperor, according to your orders. That's your personal grudge. The infinite dragon god Orpheus nodded as if she understood. It was difficult for her to understand because she didn't know much about the world. Goodbye. Seeing Orpheus lowering her head and thinking, Dustless was about to leave when a clear voice stopped him. "No, you have to help me defeat the Great Red." Orpheus floated in front of Dustless like a ghost, and then simply snapped her fingers, sealing the space exit. This fellow, seeing this, Dustless frowned even more. If he didn't know Orpheus well, he would have thought that she was deliberately looking for trouble. The infinite dragon god Orpheus rejected Dustless with an adorable face. Then he continued to act shamelessly and said, "If you don't cooperate with me, I won't let you go." "I believe you. Then it seems that there's even less need for us to work together." Dustless interrupted Orpheus. He looked at the dark void in front of him indifferently and shouted, "God's might." Wuxia. The void suddenly distorted violently and a mysterious vortex appeared. Then, Dustless activated his eye power and tore apart the sealed key of the black void. "This kind of thing is just a small problem for me." Glancing at Orpheus, Dustless's body emitted a warm glow. He turned into a beam of light and disappeared. His speed was so fast that even Orpheus couldn't keep up with him. Only Orpheus and Dustless were left in the space of dead silence. Or rather, it was a short sentence. "We'll meet again if fate allows it." Orpheus' eyes, which were as clear as agate, looked at Dustless, who disappeared in the blink of an eye. The thought of dragging him into the pit didn't fade away. Instead, it became stronger and stronger. "We'll meet again soon. At that time, you won't be able to escape from my palm." Orpheus repeated his words a few times, and his gem-like eyes shone brightly. His tone sounded very confident, giving people the illusion that he had Wuxian under control. Outside, above the Carriage King Academy, the dimension was distorted and countless vortexes were clearly visible. A large number of sorcerers poured out of them and attacked the enchantment of the Carriage King Academy. "It's endless. If we don't find the kid named Gasper, these guys can't be killed." Dustless frowned. At the same time, his observation hockey spread out again and swept between heaven and earth. "Found him." After a few seconds, Dustless suddenly opened his eyes and looked across the layers of space and saw Gasper, who was caught. Dustless suddenly turned into a golden light and rushed out. He was durable, but other people in the supernatural research department were exceptions. They were far less thick-skinned than Dustless. "That eye looks good. The ability to stop time and space is rare." Entering a special space, Dustless saw a blonde boy in women's clothes. He was bound to a glowing magic circle. It seemed that the strange magic was using this to take advantage of Gasper. "There's an intruder, kill him." The few magicians who reacted exclaimed in surprise. Their words revealed deep surprise. Dustless being able to invade this place was not inferior to them. They were all figures at the same level as the Demon King. At the same time, they didn't forget to rush over fearlessly. Silver Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. The sharpness of the Tensigan appeared. Dustless waved his hand and a fierce chakra storm appeared. The attacking sorcerers were instantly killed. Their bodies were torn apart by the storm and all the sorcerers were killed. At the same time, it meant that everything was about to end. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.